Good morning. It's still morning here in Connecticut, and I had a few minutes unexpectedly and thought I would pop in because it's been a while since I've been here. There's a story about that. Mostly my energy was just kind of low and I wasn't feeling really inspired to jump on, but I was feeling inspired to jump on today. So here I am. And I just have a few minutes, but I wanted to share what I'm noticing, both for myself and with many of my clients. And I'm actually seeing it in other people's, emails or, copywriting, that a lot of people are noticing what I've kind of been talking about all along through this COVID, which is that issues are coming up around old patterns and childhood wounds. And I've sort of seen a couple of waves of this with this, sheltering at home and with the COVID stuff. It was happening, the first couple of weeks, people were just adjusting to the craziness, being at home with kids or whatever, or working from home and trying to figure that all out. And when that energy sort of settled down, I was noticing that all of a sudden things were coming up for clients that they didn't quite understand. But as we worked together, what we realized was that whatever was coming up for them during this period of time had a thread back to some earlier event or many events in their childhood that have been unresolved, right, or unhealed up until this point. And so energetically within their nervous system, within their mental, emotional, physical, energetic body, these earlier life experiences were still alive. They may not have been in their conscious awareness, but they were still living inside of themselves. The younger parts of themselves who experienced those things were still getting triggered. And perhaps now, because of the tension and the, all of the anxiety and the uncertainty that's coming with this coronavirus, as well as with, the racial and social upheaval we're seeing, questions about what's going to happen, around school and everything in the fall. There, a lot of things were getting triggered from earlier experiences of uncertainty, of fear, of anxiety, of dysfunctional parenting, of lack of structure or security or direction. And so we're seeing a lot of that come up. One of the things that I wanted to mention today that you may be experiencing, again, I'm hearing a lot of my clients who are, 90%, 95% women saying to me, is that they're noticing patterns in themselves that they're sure they've done for years, but really hadn't noticed before. And it may be a tendency to apologize, to be the first one to apologize, or to apologize for things that where they're not even sure they did anything wrong, or but they apologize in order to bring an end to tension or discomfort in a relationship. So all of the things that I'm going to be mentioning in this short video have to do with our tendency, particularly as women, but especially if we've grown up with a measure of dysfunction in our family system, right, in our childhood, that these are patterns that we have taken on, that we learned to cope, survive, get along, make the best of, right, situations in our earlier lives that worked for us then, but are not working for us now, but they continue to be habitual patterns and the way that we deal, especially in relationships. So one thing, and I know I've spoken about this before, but one thing is the apologizing, right? Early and often, assuming everything is your fault, or even if you don't feel like it's your fault, still apologizing to take the tension out of the situation. Something many, many, many women feel are these, this sense of obligation, the needing to take care of others, very often growing out of an earlier childhood experience of being parentified, either having to take care of their own parents who may not have been functioning well, or stand in as a missing parent to make the other parent feel better if a mother or father left the scene or was never on the scene. Feelings of obligation around caring for younger siblings, or perhaps a sibling who may have had some kind of physical or mental illness. So lots of obligation. I have quite a few. I've never actually looked at the number, but I have quite a few clients who are in situations now of providing care for parents who were terribly neglectful and abusive to them as children. But they're so used to caring for the parent that they've just carried that pattern forward in their life. That's the expectation, that's the obligation. So that's one way it shows up, where the adult woman is still operating from that childhood pattern and belief that she has to be the caretaker for the parent. The other way that I sometimes see this is when at a certain point in life with an aging parent or a parent who's ill, and a child may say, an adult child, I'll never put you in a nursing home, or I'll always take care of you, right? I'll never make you leave your home. And then at a certain point in time, when there's a physical illness, or, something like, dementia, Alzheimer's, and it becomes such a physical, emotional, mental, psychological burden to care for that parent, even if they're not living with them, but, going to their home to take care of all of their needs. And it becomes so burdensome, but the adult child, has a very difficult time going back on their promise, right? Never to put the parent in a home. So that's another way that may play out. Sometimes it plays out by just always being the cheerful one, just going along, going with the flow, always sort of being upbeat and positive on the exterior, but maybe holding a lot of other emotions, feelings, and thoughts below the surface. But it's not safe. It's never been safe to do anything but sort of the compliant, cheerful one. Another way that might get expressed is always sort of being the bigger one, always taking the higher road, always being the one in the relationship, in the conversation, in the conflict, who sort of concedes the argument or is willing to just, let it go and make up. Anyway, taking the higher road is another way I see this needing to relieve the tension being played out. And the flip side of that then, of both of those, always being the cheerful one and always being the bigger person, is that requires always downplaying your own feelings, your own emotions, your own preferences, your own beliefs in a certain situation. None of that is allowed to be expressed, because that then creates more tension, right? So whenever we're being overly compliant and relieving the tension to make the situation more comfortable and more tolerable, we're most often downplaying our own hurt, sadness, disappointment in a situation. And tied into all of this is just the overtaking, the overcaring of responsibility. And again, it may be toward a parent, but it is more generalized than that. When we grow up in a system where we have had to take on responsibility because nobody else was, or because that was the role that was assigned to us, we often continue to move through life just being the responsible one, just being the one who takes on all of the responsibility, either because there's a belief that, well, nobody else is going to do it, so I may as well just do it, or a belief that or an experience that there's going to be some kind of negative consequence if you don't, right? So again, a couple different ways that is set up and plays out, but this overcaring and overtake of responsibility. So if you notice yourself, if you notice your patterns and your habits in any of those things, there's a few things that you can start to do. The first of all, of course, before anything else, is notice that that's what you're doing. You're constantly apologizing, or you're constantly jumping in to be the one to do something or fix something. You're always, the one who's being the bigger person, or being willing to offer, to walk away. So you have to have the awareness. You have to notice the behavior, the tendency to behave in a certain way before any change is possible, right? That's true across the board. When you notice that, oh, here it is again. Oops, just noticed I just apologized again. I don't even know what for. Don't use that as an opportunity to take out, the the lash, right? And beat yourself up about it. Use that as an opportunity to have compassion for the younger parts of yourself who took on that particular behavior out of a need to survive, right? Out of a need to manage the environment, get along within their family, be accepted in their family system. So rather than beat yourself up, take a moment, take a breath, invite your inner knowing, your inner child to enlighten you about where that particular behavior was seated, why it was developed in the first place. Because every behavior that we develop comes from a place of need, or else we wouldn't develop it, right? So once you can begin to understand that, then you can have compassion for those younger parts of yourself who had to take that particular personality trait or behavior on within their family system. Another thing that you can do is to differentiate and let your inner child know who may be getting triggered, right, into those old behaviors. I hear you, I see you, I understand why this is happening, and I'm just going to let you know that that was then, and this is now. Then you were a child, you didn't have a voice, you didn't have any power, perhaps you were going to have love taken away, or some kind of, abuse happen if you weren't compliant, if you didn't behave in that way. But now I'm a grown woman, right? We're not that anymore. Now I have a voice. I can set boundaries. No one's going to hurt me. It may be uncomfortable. There may be some, emotional repercussions that are difficult, but it's not a live or die situation. It's not a survival situation like it was when we were a child. And then make a different choice, right? Then it's all up to you. It's checking in with yourself and saying and asking the question, how do I want to respond to this situation now? And the key word here is respond, because when we're still in that triggering place, we are just reacting. Something happens, we get triggered, we react. We do the same act that we've done all along. When we can take a breath and get some space and soothe our inner child with understanding and compassion in that moment, then we get to break that reactivity cycle and have the ability to respond, take responsibility, do it in a different way. So I need to go. I have something at 12 that I'm probably a couple of minutes late for. So I'm going to hop off. I hope you found this helpful. I'm actually probably going to do a Facebook Live on Wednesday at 7 p.m. I'll put that in the thread here so that we can actually do some tapping about some of these patterns. I would love to know what's coming up for you, what you're seeing. Maybe I'll even start a thread in the Divinely Inspired Feminine Leaders group asking the question so that I can focus my tapping on some of the issues that you all bring up. Alrighty, have a beautiful rest of your day, and I will see you again soon. Bye now.